A few days ago, I made a video about Avowed, and I wanted to do that because in the past, I've been incredibly critical of Avowed. I've been quite scathing, actually. I've suggested it would be Obsidian's worst game ever. If you thought The Outer Worlds was mediocre, this was going to be much, much worse. It was just going to fail on basically all fronts because of development hell, inexperience from the team, and assortment of other reasons. So I was pretty harsh on it. After seeing some of the previews that have started doing the rounds, so I wanted to give an up-to-date opinion on it, which is basically to say, yes, it's still probably going to be pretty average at best, like a 6, 7 out of 10 or something like that, but I don't think it's going to be the worst thing in the world. Looking at the footage, the combat, exploration, and so on, it's probably going to be like an Outer Worlds kind of experience. So better than I'd said in the past, still not very good. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is still comfortably going to overshadow it. But I was kind of surprised by not just the reaction to my video, but all the previews that have been doing the rounds across the board. Like, there's been dozens of these Avowed previews, people playing the game for 8, 10 plus hours. The overwhelming reaction from players that I'm seeing is we don't really care about Avowed anymore. Like, we don't give a toss about a mediocre average game that now it's also been revealed has pronouns in it. Like, that to me was kind of the final straw, the straw that has broken the camel's back. And you see these arguments from people online. Like, I've looked around the Avowed Reddits and different communities. It's like, oh, the game has pronouns in it. What are you, a snowflake? This is upsetting you. It's not that at all. Like, if that's your take, you're not really understanding your fellow human. You're not understanding why Donald Trump won the US election if you're dismissing people like this. Because the pronouns in Avowed, and in case you're not familiar with it, basically, it came out semi by accident. It's not like Obsidian were advertising that Avowed has pronouns in it, but during the preview event, people discovered this, where probably in Character Creator, you can choose your pronouns, and then in the character menu screen in the game, you'll see them there. I don't know if you can change them as you go along. I mean, it would make sense if you can, given in real life, people with their pronouns, they're changing them every 7 minutes. I don't know if you can or not, but they're in the game. And honestly, like, I talked about them in my video. I focused more on sort of the gameplay and so on. I mentioned the pronouns, but I honestly thought, like, you go back like a year or two ago, I thought people had kind of given up. Like, I certainly had. Like, when it's TV shows, movies, video games now, I'd kind of thought that if pronouns are in there, it's kind of like microtransactions, where that battle was lost long ago, and trying to get something like that changed was almost impossible. Like, it's part of why I've gone so hard on Dragon Age the Veilguard, because that one, like, the level of propaganda, like, identity politics pushed to this point where the game is literally unplayable. It's horrible for gaming. It's a big reason I focused on that, because that had to go. But I thought something like the pronouns, a bit like with Dragon Quest III, where there was like body A, body B instead of male and female, it got talked about a little bit, but I don't think anyone was seriously boycotting the game. But what's the thing that has changed since, say, Dragon Quest III, which was only a few weeks ago? It was really the US election. And I think what that really told people, it's not so much like the policies in America that are going to sort of come out of it and all of that stuff. It's more so across the world. People are realizing that having an opinion, like this identity politics nonsense, anything like this, you're not in the minority if you question it and you call it out. And you call it for what it is. You call it stupid. And it's mostly attention seekers who care about this sort of crap. You are not in the minority, you are in the majority. And all of this crap that's been doing the rounds over the years, this propaganda that's being pushed on people, the gaslighting that we've gotten across the game industry, a lot of other industries, where these people have tried to say, the world has changed. You need to get with the program because pronouns, every character having to be unattractive for ideological reasons, heaps and heaps of other stuff that I've probably forgotten that we've been plagued with for a long time. We've been sort of told in some ways silenced that this is how it is now. And you or I, we can't do anything about it. It's over. we're the dinosaurs and things have moved on. But it was all a lie. It was all just genuine propaganda being shoved down people's throats because these insane cult leaders, I don't even really know what to call them, it's insane, were pushing this stuff on us like it was the majority opinion, and now they've been found out. Like, the US election showed, no. It's like, I know at least for myself, like in real life, especially like work situations, a lot of this stuff comes up, and you know not to speak your mind, because I've always had that feeling at the back of my mind. Even though I didn't want to believe it, I've sort of thought maybe I'm in the minority when it comes to like this pronoun stuff, the blue-haired people, everything else that goes on, where it's like, I think all this stuff is just weird, but maybe it's just me. And sure, there's people on the internet who seem to share my opinion, but it's not everyone. Like, family, friends, they're thinking like me, but it seems like we're in the minority or something, and the pronoun stuff is just going to be the future. But it's not true. We've all been silent, almost unnecessarily, and we're seeing the culture change before our eyes. Like, the Avowed situation, if we just look here, for instance, on the Avowed Reddit, this partly caused it to blow up, where Mark Kern made a post on X where he said, I'm drawing a line, I'm rejecting any game that has pronouns in it, talks about the Avowed pronouns, and then Elon Musk chimed in and said, having pronouns in a fantasy video game is utterly unacceptable. That kind of caused it to blow up. And there might be a lot of people who don't really know what Avowed is, they don't care what it is, but they know Elon Musk, they've seen him call this out, and that has caused them to talk about it. There'll be a little bit of that. But I think all of that aside, even people who sort of knew about Avowed and had some sort of interest, seeing the pronouns, especially after this culture shift, has absolutely been a final straw for them, where it's like, you know what? We don't have to accept this garbage anymore. There is clear evidence now that the people pushing this stuff are in the minority, and we don't have to listen to them. We don't have to be talked down to. We don't have to have this shoved in our faces. No more. Keep this stuff out of it. If you want to make like your little indie game that is self-funded and it's all about the woke stuff, like a Dustspawn or something like that, where everything about the game is identity issues, you go ahead and do that. But these mainstream companies who are trying to target like just the RPG market, for instance, which should be like politically neutral, like it should just be a game that we immerse ourselves in and get away from the real life stuff, we've had it with that. And we're not going to tolerate it. Now, there is an argument that you're going to see doing the rounds whenever anyone mentions the Avowed pronouns, like online and so on. You'll see this argument, I've already seen it, which is, why are you getting upset about the Avowed pronouns when you happily played Baldur's Gate 3? Because that has pronouns. Didn't see you getting upset then. You must be a culture war warrior or a tourist or something. I think that there is a clear distinction, and there's always got to be nuance, because, again, that's why I wanted to make that video the other day where I said Avowed is looking pretty average. I don't think it's going to set the world on fire. It's a bargain bin game at best, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as bad as the Veilguard, which is absolutely rock bottom. Everyone should reject this. It is awful. I don't think anyone cares that much about Avowed. It's not going to stand out as being bad, average. It's just going to be run-of-the-mill. But the difference with Baldur's Gate 3 is the design philosophy, very clearly with Baldur's Gate 3, is it was trying to be the best RPG it could be. I don't think there's very many people who would ever argue that Baldur's Gate 3 is focusing on agendas, identity politics, social issues. It's a game that's trying to be the best RPG it can be. It has that integrity, and it just happens to have the pronouns in there, right? I mean, you could also mention that characters of the same sex, your companions, come onto you every 7 seconds when you're back at camp, but that aside, most of the game is just about being the best RPG possible. The problem with Avowed, though, is people are just not convinced that the team behind it aren't ideologically driven, and the pronouns are not a red flag that's also going to seep into the rest of the game. Because like, we've seen the companions who just look genuinely awful. Like, you've got this one with the pink hair who just looks ridiculous. I know, Pillars of Eternity, it's already Obsidian's IP, but this just looks bad. Like, this looks worse than ever. You've got the one human companion, Giada, and Then you've got the blue guy, you've got the dwarf. Like, these companions don't fill me with confidence, and honestly, they do kind of give off Dragon Age the Veilguard vibes. I just don't think Obsidian are quite at that point yet, where the entire game is going to be seeping, dripping with modern-day politics, political propaganda. I don't think they've sunk that low yet, but it just looks kind of bad. Like, it has the Veilguard vibe, and that is obviously going to concern people, and the pronouns, they're very much a clue. It's a fair enough clue after what we've seen over the last year, where almost all of these games where you got a bad feeling before release when the marketing was doing the rounds, whether it was Concord or so many others, there's dozens of them, we were basically right every single time. Like, if it looked awful, if you got that bad feeling, the game was probably worse than you could have ever expected. I can't think of any genuine surprises where it was like, this looks bad. Oh no, it's actually incredible. What were we thinking? We shouldn't judge a book by its cover. It's actually great. No. Most of the time, we were right to trust our instincts. And that's what people are feeling with Avowed. And again, because the game just looks bog average anyway, it's like, maybe we're judging it too early because of the pronouns, but who really cares? Because nothing about it looks seriously good. Like I said, I don't think it looks as bad as I was expecting before, but at best, it's the Outer Worlds with pronouns. I don't think that's exciting anyone, especially in a month where Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is coming out. So I personally like the backlash that I'm seeing to Avowed. I doomed years ago that we'd sort of lost this battle around identity politics in games and things would just get worse and you sort of had to pick your battles. Not the case anymore. There is a clear majority of people who hate this stuff, unless Avowed turns out to be like amazing Baldur's Gate 3 level quality and gameplay and everything else. I think it's going to hurt them. I think people have lost interest, and the only people who are probably going to play Avowed at release before it goes to like $5, $6 on Steam, it's going to be Game Pass subscribers. So they've blown it with Avowed. I stand by what I said in my video the other day, that it doesn't look as bad as when it was first shown, but it doesn't look good. Players are responding. I think it's going to flop. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.